Picture this. A bunch of farmers with barely any training just defeated the British Empire. The same empire that ruled a quarter of the entire planet. This is the story of Great Britain. The American Revolution wasn't just about tea taxes. It was about ordinary people deciding their own fate. Ideas powerful enough to challenge empires. Before we continue, kindly like and subscribe to this channel so you can be notified when an insane underdog story like this is posted. The empire that owned the world. Let's go back to 1750. The world looks nothing like it does today. Great Britain controls everything. India, Africa, the Caribbean, North America. Their navy rules the oceans. Their economy dominates global trade. If you're Britain in 1750, you're basically unstoppable. Now zoom in on the eastern coast of North America. There are 13 small colonies scattered along the Atlantic. Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. These aren't important territories, they're just British outposts. Most people in London couldn't even point to them on a map. The colonies are filled with ordinary people trying to survive. Farmers growing tobacco, merchants trading, religious refugees starting fresh. Nobody's thinking about revolution. They're British subjects. They love their king. They drink tea. They consider themselves part of the greatest empire on earth. But distance changes everything. Britain is 3,000 miles away across a dangerous ocean. Communication takes months. And Britain is distracted, constantly fighting wars in Europe. While Britain is busy fighting, something weird starts happening in the American colonies. They start governing themselves. Colonial assemblies pass local laws. Merchants trade freely. People get comfortable making their own decisions. They still swear loyalty to the king. But day to day, they're running their own show. Think of it like a teenager whose parents travel constantly. You still respect them, but you also start doing things your own way. And when the parents finally come home and try to reassert control, that's when the trouble starts. The year is 1763. Britain just won the 7 Years' War. They crushed France. They gained massive territories. But victory came with a price tag. The war cost a fortune. Britain's national debt is crushing. Parliament looks at their empire and asks a simple question. Who's going to pay for all this? Their answer? The American colonies. From Britain's perspective, this makes sense. We just fought a war that protected you from French invasion. Help pay the bills. So in 1764, Parliament passes the Sugar Act. New taxes on sugar, molasses, and imported goods. The colonists complain but pay. Then comes 1765, the Stamp Act. This one hits everyone. The Stamp Act requires colonists to buy special stamped paper for almost everything. Legal documents, newspapers, playing cards. Suddenly, every colonist is directly affected by British taxation. The response is explosive. Protests erupt everywhere. The Sons of Liberty form in Boston. Tax collectors are tarred and feathered. Stamps are burned in the streets. And everywhere, one phrase echoes: no taxation without representation. Here's what that means. British citizens in Britain vote for parliament members. But colonists, they don't get to vote for anyone in parliament. So parliament is taxing them without giving them any voice. That's not fair. That's tyranny. Parliament repeals the Stamp Act in 1766. But they also passed the Declaratory Act, stating Parliament has absolute right to make laws for the colonies. Translation, we're backing down now, but don't forget who's in charge. Then in 1767, the Townshend Acts bring new taxes on glass, paint, paper, and tea. The message is clear. We own you. Deal with it. Britain sends troops to Boston. 2 regiments of redcoats occupying an American city. Tensions rise every day. On the 5th of March, 1770, everything explodes. A crowd surrounds British soldiers in Boston. They're shouting, throwing snowballs, maybe rocks. The soldiers are scared. Someone fires a shot. The soldiers fire into the crowd. 5 colonists die. 6 are wounded. This becomes the Boston Massacre. Paul Revere creates an engraving showing British soldiers coldly executing civilians. It's propaganda, but it spreads everywhere and fuels rage across all 13 colonies. Britain repeals most taxes, but they keep one, the tea tax. Parliament wants to make a point. They have authority to tax, and they're not giving it up. For 3 years, there's uneasy peace. Then Britain makes a catastrophic mistake. The tea that started a war. The year is 1773. The British East India Company is drowning in debt and sitting on millions of pounds of unsold tea. Parliament passes the Tea Act in May 1773. It gives the company a monopoly on tea sales in America. It actually makes tea cheaper. But colonists see through it. This isn't about cheap tea. It's about control. By accepting this tea, they'd be accepting Parliament's right to tax them. Plus, the monopoly cuts out American merchants. Throughout fall 1773, tea ships arrive at colonial ports. In New York and Philadelphia, they're turned away. But in Boston, the governor refuses to send them back. 3 ships sit in Boston Harbor. The standoff continues. On the 16th of December, 1773, a group of men, some disguised as Mohawk Indians, board all 3 ships. Over 3 hours, they smash open 342 chests of tea and dump every single one into the harbor. 92,000 pounds of tea, worth about $1.7 million today, gone. This is the Boston Tea Party, and Britain is done playing nice. In 1774, Parliament passes the Coercive Acts. The colonists call them the Intolerable Acts. Boston Harbor is shut down completely until the tea is paid for. Massachusetts loses its self-governing rights. British officials accused of crimes get tried in Britain, not locally. Colonists must house British soldiers in their homes. These laws are meant to isolate Massachusetts. Make an example, but something unexpected happens. The other colonies don't abandon Massachusetts. They rally around them. For the first time, the colonies see themselves as one people. In September 1774, delegates from 12 colonies meet in Philadelphia. The First Continental Congress. George Washington, John Adams, Samuel Adams, Patrick Henry, brilliant minds gathered to decide what to do. They draft a petition to King George III asking for the Intolerable Acts to be repealed. The king ignores it completely. Instead, in February 1775, he declares Massachusetts in rebellion. He orders General Thomas Gage to seize colonial weapons and arrest rebel leaders. On the night of the 18th of April, 1775, 700 British soldiers marched toward Concord to seize weapons. But colonists have spies. Paul Revere and William Dawes ride through the night, warning everyone, the British are coming. By dawn, on the 19th of April, 1775, 70 colonial militiamen stand on Lexington Green. Farmers, tradesmen, facing 700 professional British soldiers, the British commander orders them to disperse. They start to leave. Then a shot cracks through the air. Nobody knows who fired, but the British soldiers open fire. 8 colonists die, 10 are wounded. This is the shot heard round the world. The American Revolution has begun. The British march to Concord, find some weapons, destroy them, then march back. But colonial militia swarm from every direction. They fire from behind trees and walls the entire 16 miles back to Boston. The British lose 73 killed, 174 wounded. The colonists lose about 50 killed. 2 months later, the Battle of Bunker Hill happens outside Boston. Britain wins, but loses over 1,000 men. A British officer writes home, Another such victory would have utterly ruined us. The war everyone thought would end in weeks is becoming something bigger. Independence or death. By summer 1775, the colonies are at war. But they're not officially seeking independence. Not yet. The Second Continental Congress meets in Philadelphia. They need a unified military. They need a commander. They choose George Washington on the 15th of June, 1775. He's from Virginia. Choosing a Southerner helps unite Northern and Southern colonies. He takes no salary, only expenses. Washington arrives in Boston in July and finds chaos. No uniforms, minimal training, no discipline, but he gets to work building a real army. Meanwhile, public opinion shifts. In January 1776, Thomas Paine publishes Common Sense. It's written in plain language. He asks simple questions. Why should a continent be ruled by an island? Why should free people bow to a king? Common Sense sells over 100,000 copies in months. In a population of 2.5 million, that's like selling 13 million copies today in weeks. Without internet, without television, suddenly, independence isn't radical. It's mainstream. On the 2nd of July, 1776, Congress votes for independence. On the 4th of July, 1776, they adopt the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson writes it. He's only 33. He states that all men are created equal. They have unalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Governments get power from the consent of the governed, and when government becomes destructive, people have the right to abolish it. Revolutionary ideas in 1776. Most of the world is ruled by kings claiming divine right. Regular people creating governments, that's radical. The Declaration is read aloud everywhere. Bells ring, crowds cheer. Statues of King George are destroyed. There's no turning back. Britain's response? Overwhelming force. In August 1776, the largest military expedition ever assembled arrives in New York. 32,000 British and German soldiers, 400 ships. The Battle of Long Island is a catastrophe for Americans. Washington is outmaneuvered, his army nearly destroyed. Only a desperate nighttime evacuation saves them. The British follow. Manhattan falls. Fort Washington falls. Fort Lee falls. Washington retreats across New Jersey. Soldiers desert daily. They're starving, exhausted, losing hope. By December 1776, Washington has maybe 3,000 soldiers left. The cause looks doomed. Thomas Paine writes by firelight, "These are the times that try men's souls." Washington knows he needs a victory. Any victory, or it's over. The crossing, Christmas night, 1776. Washington's army camps along the Delaware River. Across the river sits a garrison of Hessians in Trenton. The Hessians don't expect an attack. It's winter. It's Christmas. Washington decides to cross the Delaware in the middle of the night and attack at dawn. It's desperate. It might be suicide. The weather is brutal. Freezing, snow, and sleet. The river is filled with ice chunks. Starting at 6 p.m. on December 25, soldiers begin crossing. It takes hours. By 3 a.m. on December 26, about 2,400 men are across. They march 9 miles through a snowstorm to Trenton. At 8 a.m., they attack. The Hessians are caught completely off guard. The battle lasts an hour. Americans capture nearly 1,000 Hessian soldiers. American casualties? 4 wounded. 2 freeze to death on the march. Small battle, but huge psychological impact. The Continental Army just defeated professional European soldiers. They proved they can win. Washington follows up with victory at Princeton on the 3rd of January, 1777. Momentum shifts. Throughout 1777, British General Burgoyne leads an army south from Canada trying to cut off New England. He starts strong, but then everything goes wrong. His supply lines stretch too far, terrain is brutal, American militia harass him constantly. In September and October, 1,777 battles near Saratoga trap Burgoyne's army. On the 17th of October, 1777, he surrenders. Nearly 6,000 British soldiers. This is the turning point. The Battle of Saratoga proves America can win. And in Paris, Benjamin Franklin has been begging France for support. France lost badly to Britain in the 7 Years' War. They want revenge. When news of Saratoga reaches Paris, everything changes. America is legitimate. They can win. On the 6th of February, 1778, France and the United States sign a treaty of alliance. France officially recognizes American independence. French warships, French soldiers, French money. This changes everything. Britain isn't fighting a colonial rebellion anymore. They're fighting a world war. Spain joins. Then the Dutch Republic. Britain's resources stretch thin. But even with French support, the darkest days are ahead. Winter 1777 to 1778, Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, 12,000 men in a makeshift camp, not enough food, not enough clothing, not enough shelter. Soldiers wrap feet in rags. They leave bloody footprints in snow. Disease spreads. About 2,500 soldiers die that winter from starvation, cold, and disease. But Baron Friedrich von Steuben arrives in February 1778, a Prussian military officer. Every day, he drills the troops, teaches them European tactics, creates standardized training. By spring, the Continental Army is transformed, disciplined, trained, a real army. The British shift focus to southern colonies. They capture Savannah in December 1778. Charleston in May 1780. But guerrilla fighters like Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, launch hit-and-run attacks. The British hold cities but can't control the countryside. By 1781, both sides are exhausted. Then everything comes together in one place. Yorktown, Virginia. British General Cornwallis digs in on a peninsula at Yorktown. He's waiting for the British Navy. Washington sees an opportunity. He marches south with French General Rochambeau. Meanwhile, French Admiral de Grasse sails up from the Caribbean and blocks Chesapeake Bay. Cornwallis is trapped. By land, 17,000 American and French troops surround him. By sea, French warships block escape. For 3 weeks, they bombard Yorktown. On the 19th of October 1781, Cornwallis surrenders. Over 7,000 British soldiers lay down weapons. The greatest empire on earth just lost to rebellious colonies. Fighting continues in places, but everyone knows it's over. On the 3rd of September 1783, the Treaty of Paris is signed. Britain officially recognizes the United States of America. The impossible happened. From nation to empire. Winning independence is one thing. Building a nation is different. After the war, the United States is a mess. Economy in ruins. No real central government. The Articles of Confederation create a weak federal system. Each state acts like its own country. It's chaos. In May 1787, delegates gather in Philadelphia for the Constitutional Convention. They create something entirely new. The Constitution establishes a federal government with 3 branches: legislative, executive, judicial. Checks and balances. It balances state and federal power, but it leaves slavery in place. Southern states refuse to join without it. The issue is kicked down the road. In 1789, George Washington becomes first president. The Great Experiment begins. In 1803, President Jefferson purchases the Louisiana Territory from France for $15 million. Overnight, the United States doubles in size, over 800,000 square miles. The nation keeps expanding westward. Florida acquired in 1819. Texas annexed in 1845. After the Mexican-American War, the U.S. gains California and the Southwest. By 1850, America stretches from sea to shining sea, but expansion brings crisis. The question of slavery tears the nation apart. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln is elected. Southern states see this as a threat. 11 states secede. They form the Confederate States of America. On the 12th of April, 1861, Confederate forces fire on Fort Sumter. The Civil War begins. It's the bloodiest war in American history. Over 600,000 Americans die, more than all other American wars combined until Vietnam. The war rages 4 years. On the 9th of April, 1865, Confederate General Lee surrenders at Appomattox. The Union is preserved. Slavery is abolished. The nation has to rebuild. The late 1800s bring industrialization. Railroads connect the continent. Steel mills rise. Oil wells pump. Factories multiply. Millions of immigrants arrive seeking opportunity. Between 1,880 and 1,920, over 20 million people come from Europe. They bring skills, dreams, and labor. By 1900, the United States has the world's largest economy. It surpasses Britain. Think about that. In 1783, America barely holds together. By 1900, it's the world's economic powerhouse. The 20th century transforms America into a true superpower. In 1898, the Spanish-American War establishes America as an imperial power. The U.S. gains Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Then, World War I. War breaks out in Europe in August 1914. America stays neutral for 3 years. But German submarines sink American ships. On the 6th of April, 1917, the United States declares war on Germany. Over 2 million American soldiers pour into Europe. They arrive as Britain and France are exhausted. Their presence tips the balance. The war ends the 11th of November, 1918. America emerges as a major world power. The 1,922nd roar. Then, on the 29th of October, 1929, the stock market crashes. The Great Depression begins. Unemployment reaches 25%. President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal programs slowly improve the economy. Then, the 1st of September, 1939, Germany invades Poland. World War II begins. America tries to stay neutral. But on the 7th of December, 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. Over 2,400 Americans die. Congress declares war. America is fighting in 2 theaters: Pacific against Japan, Europe against Germany and Italy. The United States mobilizes on an unprecedented scale. Factories convert to war production. Over 16 million Americans serve. America produces an avalanche of military equipment: tanks, planes, ships, weapons. On the 6th of June, 1944, D-Day, Allied forces invade Normandy, the largest amphibious invasion in history. Over 150,000 troops. On the 8th of May, 1945, Germany surrenders. Victory in Europe. In the Pacific, President Truman faces a terrible decision. On the 6th of August 1945, an atomic bomb hits Hiroshima. Around 80,000 die instantly. 3 days later, another bomb hits Nagasaki. On the 15th of August 1945, Japan surrenders. World War II is over. Europe lies in ruins, but America is untouched. American factories intact, economy booming. The United States emerges as the wealthiest, most powerful nation on Earth. The age of the American superpower has arrived. The Cold War begins immediately. United States versus Soviet Union. Democracy versus communism. Korean War in 1950. Space race in the 1,960 seconds. On the 20th of July, 1969, Neil Armstrong walks on the moon. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Vietnam War divides the nation. Civil rights protests demand equality. In 1989, the Berlin Wall falls. On the 26th of December, 1991, the Soviet Union dissolves. The Cold War is over. The United States stands as the world's sole superpower. American military bases span the globe. The economy exceeds $25 trillion. How did this happen? It wasn't destiny. It was geography. Two oceans protecting the nation. Vast natural resources. It was immigration. Millions bringing talent and innovation. It was timing. World wars devastated Europe, but strengthened America. It was institutions. A constitution providing stability. It was sacrifice. Millions of Americans building over generations. And it was an idea that people could govern themselves. That freedom was worth fighting for. That idea, born in rebellion against an empire, built an empire of its own. From colonies that fired shots at Lexington to the most powerful nation in history. That's the American story. But here's the thing. Every empire rises and every empire falls. Egypt fell, Persia fell, Rome fell, Spain fell, Britain fell. No empire lasts forever. So the question isn't if America will decline, the question is when and what comes next. Is America already declining? Political division, economic inequality, global competitors rising? Or is America still ascending, still adapting, still innovating? Nobody knows. History only reveals itself after it's written. But the story isn't over. History is being made right now, today. And that's what makes studying the past so powerful. When you understand how nations rise, you recognize the patterns. The American Revolution wasn't just about tea taxes. It was about ordinary people deciding their own fate. Ideas powerful enough to challenge empires, those ideas are still alive today, still being tested. If you loved this story, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, drop a comment telling me which empire you want me to cover next. Rome, the Mongols, Alexander the Great, the British Empire? Because history is full of incredible stories. Stories of ambition, power, triumph, and collapse. Stories that remind us nothing is permanent, everything changes, and that even the smallest group in the unlikeliest place can change the world.